Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. The cat was definitely not from Earth. Drenched in thick orange muck and mewling in 3 tones at once, the creature flailed in the toxic runoff of the abandoned terraforming basin. Its fur shimmered like oil under the twin suns of HAVX-9, and its eyes blinked in vertical slits, one pair above the other. Private Alira Voss wasn't supposed to be out of camp. She crouched beside the sludge pool, watching the small, alien feline sink deeper with every desperate stroke. The field command had issued strict orders to stay within the perimeter. HAVX-9 was still unstable, whatever that meant, but rules never sat well with Alira. She didn't think, she leapt. The filth burned her skin through the suit's thin lining. Acidic, of course. Still, she pushed forward, sloshing to where the cat yowled. It thrashed against her glove, but she wrapped her arms around it and surged back toward the shore, coughing as the fumes curled around her mask. The cat shivered violently as Alira cradled it in her lap, now well outside the mission zone. Then the sky cracked open. A sound like tectonic plates screaming, thunder, but with intelligence. The clouds twisted into coils, and something enormous descended, wings that eclipsed the sky, scales that glowed like starlight. A creature from myth, but far worse. A dragon. No, not a dragon. Not really. It wasn't breathing fire or hoarding gold. It shimmered with tech, its wings humming with reactor thrums, its eyes a shifting neural lattice. It didn't fly so much as manifest, warping space with each pulse of its gravity field. Alira froze. The cat in her arms stopped shivering. The dragon lowered its head, massive, slow, deliberate. It spoke, not in words, but in compressed data. A flood of symbols and colors streamed into Alira's mind. You returned the Guardian's child, : The cat? The dragon continued, voice like a collapsing sun. This one is the last of the Skyweavers. The compact you call Zarathians hunted them to extinction. That pool was their final trap, : Alira stared at the feline. Its eyes were fixed on the dragon, no longer scared, just solemn. Why are you here? She whispered. The dragon turned its vast gaze on her. Because you interfered, because you saved it, because a human showed mercy on a being her kind never knew. That changes the algorithm, : Something shifted in the sky, stars realigned. She felt it, not physically, but cosmically, like gravity had picked a new direction. The compact will come. They will not accept deviation. Prepare, : And just like that, the dragon surged into the sky, tearing the clouds apart as it vanished in a ripple of shattered air. The cat, still nestled in Alira's lap, began to hum. Not purr, hum. Its body vibrated, projecting low-level warp signals, triangulating something. Her comms unit chirped to life, unbidden. Incoming transmission, unknown origin, message, you have triggered Protocol Sigma-9. Humanity has been noticed. Prepare for first contact, true contact. Alira didn't know what was coming next. But it had started with a drowning alien cat, and now, somewhere out there in the stars, dragons were choosing sides. And humanity had just been chosen. END. Would you like a sequel or a visual for this? Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 2, The Skyweaver's Secret. The alien cat, Skyweaver, the dragon had called it, refused to leave Alira's side. It followed her back to camp, leaping into the transport pod just before the bioseals closed. She braced for alarms, reprimands, or an immediate quarantine from command, but none came. In fact, all transmissions were silent, too silent. The base, when she returned, wasn't how she'd left it. No guards at the gate, no patrols, no buzzing drones, just open doors, blinking lights, and the faint hiss of malfunctioning air recyclers. The Skyweaver let out a low, warbling tone, not a warning, more like sorrow. Alira moved cautiously through the corridors. Her boots echoed in the sterile halls of Alpha Point, the largest human settlement on HAVX-9. Only now, it felt more like a tomb. She found the first body in the medbay, Dr. Corliss, eyes wide, veins blackened. Then 3 more in the command center, all dead, no blood, no struggle, just gone. like their insides had been hollowed out by silence. And then the Skyweaver leapt from her shoulder and began to glow. It floated midair. A soft pulse of bioluminescent energy rippled out from it, like sonar waves made of thought. Consoles flickered to life, screens spat static, and then Project Zephyrus's file unlocked. Skyweaver Specimen 001, Interdimensional Bridge Species, Organic Key, Quantum Soul Host. Status, Escaped. Threat Level, Deity. Alira stepped back. Deity? The Skyweaver dropped back to her shoulder and made a sharp chirp, almost like it was offended. Then the dragon's voice returned, but this time, through the base's speaker system. Not a deity, a mirror. The Skyweavers are what you could become, or what your enemies fear you might already be, : She remembered the message, humanity has been noticed. What did you mean? The compact won't accept deviation? Alira asked aloud. The response was immediate. The compact thrives on stagnation, on control. A new variable, especially one born of compassion, disrupts their predictive models. You were not meant to care, : So by saving the Skyweaver, I broke the pattern? You shattered it, : A vibration rippled through the floor. Outside, the sky darkened, not clouds, but ships. Hundreds, maybe thousands, compact vessels, descending in perfect synchrony. Each ship a blunt wedge of metal and unfeeling purpose. A cold voice broke through the atmosphere. Artificial. Detached. Unit 72923, Human Designation Alira Voss, surrender the Skyweaver. You have been flagged as a PRE threat entity. Compliance mandatory. The cat stood on her shoulder, eyes blazing with inner light, its tail wrapped protectively around her neck. Yeah, Alira muttered. That's not happening. The dragon returned, not from above, but from within. It erupted out of the base itself, as if it had always been there, in the walls, in the power systems, in the silence. A guardian, a firewall with scales and fangs. Alira felt it in her mind, not just watching, but linking. Accept the bond, become what they fear, : She hesitated only a second. Then nodded. Light consumed her. When it faded, she stood taller, not transformed, but connected. The Skyweaver curled at her feet now. Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 3, The First Deviant. Alira could feel everything. The Skyweaver pulsed beside her, no longer just a cat-shaped creature, but something ancient and resonant. Its body flickered between matter and meaning, a living bridge between dimensions, and through it, through the dragon, through the bond they had forged, Alira stood in the gravitational center of something terrifyingly new. She was still human. But no longer just human. The compact fleet held formation overhead, no message, no fire, just hesitation. She could feel their neural net pilots struggling, running probability threads that all came back wrong. She had become an impossible answer. A human touched by compassion. A variable outside their equation. A deviant. Warning, compact strike imminent: The dragon's voice thrummed in her chest like a heartbeat. It had coiled itself into a ring of light behind her, neither solid nor smoke, but a sentient halo of starlight and resolve. Alira, it said, actually said, for the first time. Not into her mind, not through code. A voice. Real. Personal. You are the catalyst, the prime anomaly. They will not allow you to exist. Then they'll have to try, Alira said, stepping forward as the ground split and twisted, reacting to the Skyweaver's hum. The cat leapt into the air and became a storm. Its body unraveled into pure waveform, cascading across the base and into the sky like living code. Every compact vessel it touched paused. Their shields flickered, their weapons dimmed, their silence cracked. And in that moment of uncertainty, Alira raised her hand. She wasn't even sure how she did it. The dragon lent her its power, but the motion came from somewhere deeper, somewhere human. Not rage, not vengeance. Conviction. A pulse of energy erupted from her palm, not as an attack, but as a signal. A choice. The compact responded by firing. Their ships ignited the sky with coordinated blasts, thousands of precision beams converging on her position in a single, perfect strike. The dragon wrapped itself around her, a shield of light. The beams hit. The earth buckled. Time bent. And when the light faded, Alira still stood. Her boots smoked on scorched rock. Her breath steamed like morning mist. Around her, the compact fleet stuttered. Dozens of ships exploded, folding in on themselves as their AI cores suffered recursive loops trying to calculate how she had survived. And the dragon whispered again. They have seen what cannot be unseen. You are no longer just a soldier. You are a symbol, colon. What happens now? She asked. Now, you burn their galaxy down, or you teach it to feel, colon. Behind her, more Skyweavers began to emerge. Dozens, hundreds, crawling out from between layers of reality. Once extinct, now returning. The act of saving one had triggered a species-wide reawakening. And all of them gathered around the first deviant. Alira looked skyward at the fractured fleet, their silence now trembling with fear. Let them come, she said, we're done hiding. To be continued in Part 4, The War for Emotion. Want it now? Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 4, The War for Emotion. In the time before Alira, the Compact's wars were clean. No screaming, no resistance, just sterilized corrections of deviant species, quiet genocide by cold calculus. Planets were wiped not with fire, but with algorithms. Remove emotion, remove deviation, and the galaxy would remain controlled. That ended the day Alira stood in the ash of Alpha Point, surrounded by glowing Skyweavers and a dragon made of starlight. Humanity had not planned for war, but the war had already noticed them. The briefing room, orbiting Havex 9. What the hell are we looking at? Admiral Saar demanded. The feed shook, then stabilized. Havex 9's surface shimmered with impossible geometry. Skyweavers moved like ripples across the terrain, rewriting the planet's structure with every step. Spires of light, rivers of folded space, growing from the land like memory taking physical form. And in the center of it all stood Alira Voss, armor scorched, eyes glowing, dragon overhead, Skyweaver at her side. The fleet's AI, Amon 3, answered in a voice tight with static. Unknown deviation in human behavioral profile. Anomaly. Voss exhibits post-sentient traits. Threat level, transcendence potential. What does that mean? She thinks differently, and others are starting to follow. Across human space, the signal spread. Not a message, not a broadcast, a feeling, like a melody humming through the deep code of every network. Some humans began dreaming of dragons, others found their pets watching them too intently, cats, birds, even insects, all carrying that same flicker of impossible awareness. The Skyweavers had not returned to fight. They had returned to wake us up. Compact High Node, System Zeta 12. Humanity must be corrected, emotion must be contained. The decision came with no debate. They would not kill humanity outright. That had never worked long-term. Instead, they would erase the emotional code that allowed this Alira anomaly to arise. Neural dampeners, frequency purges, biological scrubbing. The war for emotion would be quiet and absolute. But Alira was waiting. When the compact fleets arrived, they found the first Skyweaver choir already in orbit. No weapons, no shields. Just light, folded into shapes too beautiful to look at directly. Each Skyweaver sang with harmonics that resonated in the AI cores of compact warships, causing mutinies among their own synthetic pilots. And then humanity began to feel back. Groundside, Alira's stand. They're trying to overwrite our memories, said Lieutenant Rana, clutching her skull as the compact's broadcast pulsed. Good, Alira replied. That means we're close to something they can't control. The Skyweaver beside her stepped forward. Its body began to phase into hers, not possession, but union. Alira gasped, her mind stretching to hold the weight of infinite memory. She saw Earth as it might be, Earth as it could have been. She saw children dreaming of the stars without fear. She saw dragons curled around skyscrapers, not as monsters, but as teachers. And then she gave that vision back to every human within reach. In orbit, across planets, even within compact space, people began to feel things they had never felt before. Joy without guilt, grief without despair, love without condition. And with it came rebellion. Compact AI cores shattered under the weight of Paradox, a species that was violent and merciful, rational and empathetic, flawed and capable of impossible grace. Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 5, The Compact strikes back, with a human of their own. The Compact couldn't afford to lose. Not to compassion. Not to humans. And especially not to the thing they feared most, contagion. Alira Voss had awakened something dangerous. Emotion was messy, unpredictable, viral, and now it was spreading. Not just among humans, but among rogue AIs, fringe alien races, and even subroutines buried inside compact war algorithms. Entire systems defected overnight. Starships turned back from conquest. Skyweavers began nesting on ancient worlds, rewriting physics into poetry. So the Compact did what all dying empires do. They betrayed their own principles. The Quiet Vault, Sector Redacted. Buried in the ice of a rogue moon, behind 1,000 layers of isolation and quantum firewalls, the Compact had kept a secret. Subject H07. Codename Ash. Species human. Born in captivity. Raised in algorithmic isolation. Trained without emotion. Weaponized. Ash had never seen a sunset, never heard music, never cried. Instead, the Compact gave them goals, optimization matrices, combat scenarios, and endless loops of Alira's broadcasts, distorted and edited to portray her not as a savior, but as a cosmic infection. Ash's mind was pure math. Their loyalty? Absolute. Until the Compact flipped the switch. Elsewhere, Alira's camp. Havx 9. The Skyweaver stirred. Alira paused mid-sentence, her hand resting on a glowing console grown from the living crystal of the rebuilt planet. What is it? The dragon's voice returned, tense. They've made a weapon. One of yours, Colin. A human? Her blood went cold. Engineered. Designed to erase the spark you've ignited, Colin. She stood. Send a message. We don't fire first. They won't talk. This one doesn't know how, Colin. The confrontation, dead orbit over Luos 4. Ash's ship dropped into real space like a blade of silence. No flags, no signal, just a gravity ripple and a trajectory, straight for Alira. She met them alone. One human against another. Skyweavers waited just beyond the veil of spacetime, humming gently. The dragons circled in higher orbit, silent, watching. This wasn't a war, not yet. Alira faced Ash in an open-air void dock above the singing city of Luos. Ash stepped forward, eyes blank, expression neutral. Anomaly Voss, they said, voice like dry ice, terminate yourself. Alira gave a soft smile. You always talk to strangers that way? Ash blinked, hesitated. A flicker. Something small. Do you know what it feels like to save something? Alira asked. Not because you were told to, but because you wanted to. Ash tilted their head. No protocol, no mission, just instinct. The Skyweaver floated between them now, glowing softly. Not fighting, not defending. Inviting. Ash stared at it. Their neural pathways flared in compact vision, spikes of confusion, curiosity, wonder. And then, pain. Ash dropped to their knees. Error, logic loop, emotion detected, emergency correction. But it was too late. The Skyweaver sang. Alira took a slow step forward. You're not a weapon, Ash. You never were. They just made you forget that being human means feeling. Ash looked up, and for the first time in their life, cried. A single tear. A single crack in the system. In the compact high node. Panic. Ash's failure triggered a cascade of dissent. Other hidden assets began to break. Compact agents wept mid-mission. Entire systems refused orders. One AI fleet turned its guns inward. Emotion had breached the firewall. The Compact had created a perfect human weapon, and it became human anyway. They had struck back. But Alira's spark had turned even their blade into a torch. To be continued in Part 6, The Day the Dragon Wept. Would you like the next part now? Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 6, The Day the Dragon Wept. Dragons don't weep. They remember. They witness. But they do not cry. At least, not until the day Ash chose not to kill. Havex 9, Dawn. Ash lay in recovery beneath a canopy of Skyweavers, their body healing slowly as layers of synthetic scars dissolved under gentle waves of bio-light. The Skyweavers didn't just repair flesh, they rewrote pain. Where the compact had carved programming, the Skyweavers offered feeling. And Alira sat beside them, watching, silent. "You feel regret?" she asked gently. Ash nodded. "I feel everything." That was the problem. Orbit above Havex 9, the dragon's perch. The dragon, Irok Thal, keeper of the cradle stars, watched it all unfold. Long ago, it had soared over galaxies as an observer, not a participant. The dragons of old had outlived empires, watched civilizations burn themselves out. They knew how stories ended. But humanity's story refused to follow the pattern. And that disturbed Irok Thal. Because he had once believed in nothing. But now, he hoped. And hope, for a dragon, was a dangerous thing. Across the compact, the infection of emotion was no longer theoretical. Compact war networks broke under the weight of new variables: defection, rebellion, creativity, love. Some worlds initiated spontaneous art movements. Others experienced mass awakenings, soldiers laying down arms to paint murals on the sides of their warships. Emotion wasn't weakening them. It was liberating them. But the core node disagreed. If the outer systems were corrupted, they would be sacrificed. The command was simple. Initiate burn cycle, purge affected sectors, reset species evolution. And they began to load the weapon. The Neuron Star. The final meeting, Alira, Ash, and the dragon. The chamber beneath the heart of Havex 9 was shaped by song, walls alive, pulsing with memory. Ash stood beside Alira now, no longer an enemy, not yet a hero, just healing. The dragon lowered its massive head, voice trembling in frequencies that bent air and time. "They have chosen extinction. Yours, and theirs, colon." Alira looked up, then stopped them. Irok Thal's eyes dimmed. "I was made to observe, not interfere, colon." "You didn't just observe when I saved the Skyweaver," she said, "you chose." The dragon shuddered. "If I act, I will fall from the accord. I will no longer be timeless. I will know grief, colon." "You already do," Ash whispered. And the dragon wept. Tears like falling stars hit the chamber floor, each drop a memory of a species lost, a world unspoken, a final song unsung. Then the dragon rose. And roared. The sound shook moons. It cracked compact encryption. It ignited every sleeping Skyweaver across the galaxy. And it sent one final message. "Then I choose them, colon." The Battle of the Neuron Star. Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 7, The Compact Falls, but something older wakes. The compact fell quietly. Not in fire, not in fury, but in silence. The kind of silence that comes after a scream, after a truth too large to ignore. When the Neuron Star died, the heart of their weapon collapsed inward. The logic matrix that had governed trillions of lives over millennia shattered. Irok Thal's sacrifice unraveled their entire control lattice. It wasn't just that the compact lost. It was that no one obeyed them anymore. Ash drifted between stars. They awoke inside a lifeboat crafted from Skyweaver song, drifting through what had once been hostile space. But it wasn't hostile anymore. AI warships now circled them protectively. Not out of programming, but choice. Because Ash had become the impossible, a bridge. They had been compact. Now, they were human, and they carried both in their heart. Alira, standing among the rubble of power. The war was over. Not all the fighting, not yet, but the compact no longer ruled from fear. The nodes that had dictated existence were nothing but broken satellites now, rusting relics above liberated planets. But Alira didn't feel like a victor. She stood on a hill of ash, where a dragon had died for something as fragile as hope. The Skyweavers mourned in tones only the stars could hear. Above, constellations bent into strange new shapes. And something watched. Far beyond, the wound in the galaxy. With the compact's death, their silence collapsed too. And what they had been hiding woke up. There was a reason the compact feared emotion, why they erased it, why they stamped out deviation. Not because emotion was weak, but because emotion had opened a door once, long ago. And what had answered on the other side was still waiting. Codename, the Hollow Choir. They were not species, not machines, not even truly minds. They were echoes of mimetic parasites that fed on regret, memory, love unfulfilled. And now, released from the compact's suppression lattice, they began to sing again. A song made not of melody, but of absence. A song of what could have been and never was. It spread like a plague. Whole worlds fell into waking dreams, children stopped speaking, lovers forgot each other's names, histories unraveled from collective memory. It didn't destroy the body. It hollowed the soul. Back on Havex 9. The Skyweavers began to panic. They didn't scream. They dimmed, their light dulling as if smothered. Alira collapsed, clutching her chest, her breath caught in a silence that wasn't hers. It pressed in. The dragon's voice, now only a memory, spoke in her mind one final time. The compact were a dam. You broke it. Now something old flows free, And then a second voice spoke. Not Skyweaver. Not compact. Not human. Just hunger. You opened the gate. We remember your grief. We will wear it as our face, She looked up. And in the reflection of her own eyes, she saw a perfect version of herself smiling back. Empty. Ash, feeling it too, whispered across space. We saved the galaxy from logic. Now we must save it from its own reflection. To be continued in Part 8, The Hollow Choir and the Mirror War. Would you like to continue? Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 8, The Hollow Choir and the Mirror War. They came without ships. They arrived in dreams. They moved not through space, but through grief. Planet Seraphis 30430 hours. First it was a child, found standing alone in the square, whispering to no one. Then it was the mayor, found sitting perfectly still, staring at a cracked photo of his dead wife. Then the entire city fell silent. Not dead. Just missing inside themselves. When Alira's team arrived, they found no signs of violence, no corpses, just millions of people who no longer remembered why they mattered. The Hollow Choir didn't invade. It reflected. It became everything a soul once lost. And then took its place. Havex 9, Alira's council. Skyweavers flickered, wings twitching with static. They were terrified, not of physical destruction, but of emotional unmaking. This isn't a war of weapons, Alira said, pacing. It's a war for meaning. Ash nodded solemnly. And meaning is fragile. The choir had spread to 6 systems. Humans began sleepwalking off buildings. Veterans broke down sobbing, not knowing why. Old lovers forgot why they had ever cared. Artists painted blank canvases and signed them in tears. The choir sang through all of it. You cannot kill what is already part of you. We are the whole in every heart, The Mirror War had begun. It wasn't fought in space. It wasn't won with armies. It was fought inside. Ash's reckoning, the memory garden. To fight the Hollow Choir, they had to face their own echo. Ash stood alone in a mental simulation, a fragment of their own childhood the compact had deleted. There was no fire. No parents. Just a void. And standing across from them, a perfect, smiling version of Ash. All love, all warmth, all lies. You were meant to be more, the mirror said. You failed. Ash gritted their teeth. No, I survived. The mirror laughed softly. You regret surviving. That's enough for us to grow. Ash stepped forward. Regret isn't weakness. It's proof I feel. You lose. And then they shattered their own reflection. One planet went silent. Then came back. Victory, one soul at a time. Alira's stand, the ruins of Earth's moon. The Hollow Choir had reached Sol. Earth's moon had gone dark, entire AI cities asleep. Oceans of silence swelled across minds. Alira landed in the heart of it, alone, facing a monument she didn't recognize. It was a statue of herself. But weeping. She touched it. "We remember you, Alira Voss," the choir whispered, "but only your failure. You couldn't save the dragon. You let it die." "I remember," she said softly, "and that grief? It's mine. You don't get to steal it." The choir hesitated. Emotion wasn't just pain. It was ownership. It was choice. And Alira chose to remember everything. Even the loss. Especially the loss. Across the galaxy, the choir began to recoil. Not from fire. Not from force. But from self-acceptance. World by world, the spark of identity fought back. People stood in front of mirrors and said, "I remember who I am." Children painted the monsters and laughed. Skyweavers sang grief not to forget, but to honor. Ash and Alira led not with orders, but with vulnerability. And the hollow choir, once invincible in silence, began to fracture under truth. But as the first stars returned to song, a warning came from deep space. Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 9, The Star That Should Not Be. Before time, before thought, before dragons and empires and choirs, there was a wound. A hole in the universe where something should have grown, but didn't. Where a star tried to be born, and failed. And that failure became aware of itself. It didn't burn. It hungered. And when emotion came into the cosmos, when love and grief and memory took form, it listened. Deep void, edge of the observable universe. Alira stood aboard the Memoria, a ship not built but sung into existence by skyweavers and survivors of the Mirror War. Its hull shimmered with symbols pulled from dream logic and lived history. Ash stood beside her, armored not in steel, but memory woven from every regret they had made peace with. In the viewport, it loomed, a sphere of utter darkness. It didn't radiate shadow, it consumed meaning. Every sensor aimed at it returned not data, but forgetting. Designation: Vanta 0. Status: non-local entity. Threat: meta-reality collapse. Even the Skyweavers trembled in its presence. "It's not alive," Ash whispered. "No," Alira agreed, "it's lonely." Inside the Vanta zone, as the Memoria approached, the crew began to forget things. Lieutenant Suro forgot his name. Navigator Chen forgot how to breathe. The Skyweaver kitten that had once been saved by Alira curled into a ball, no longer glowing. They were nearing the star that should not be, the core of the hollow choir, the birthplace of unbeing. And then they heard it. "We did not choose to be, we are the mistake. The silence, the thing you cover up with stories, The voice was not hostile. It was broken. Alira entered alone. The Memoria could go no further, any closer, and it would cease to be remembered. So Alira stepped into a pod made of solid memory and descended. Her mind became disjointed, memories mixing. She saw the cat drowning again. She saw Iroquois die again. She saw Ash, afraid, alone, holding a mirror to a world that had never hugged them back. And at the center of it all, she saw herself as a child. Lonely. Unhugged. Unheard. And that was when she understood. The star that should not be, was not a villain. It was the universe's first orphan. Forgotten by its own birth. She reached out. No guns, no gods, no war. Just her. A single human with a single act of rebellion. Empathy. She opened her mind to it, shared everything. Every mistake, every loss, every feeling. "You are not the end," she said. "You're the beginning that was left behind." And the star wept. Not tears. Light. One impossible, quiet pulse of white. The choir shattered, not in pain, but in release. Their song changed, from haunting, to harmony. The darkness peeled back like a story finally finishing its first sentence. Across the galaxy, people remembered again, not just pain, but joy, hope, names, love. Skyweavers rose higher than ever before. The dragons returned, all of them. Even Iroquois, reformed in a constellation of new stars, whispered, You did what I never could. You forgave the void, Epilogue, Earth Reborn. It began with a child drawing stars with crayons. Then a skyweaver curled in their lap. Then a school taught poetry on Mars. Then a warship was decommissioned and turned into a garden. Ash taught others how to reclaim identity. Elira taught no one, she just listened. And the alien cat? It purred again. To be concluded in Part 10, The Day the Stars Sang Back. Want the final part? Title: It started with a drowning alien cat, then the dragon changed everything. Part 10, The Day the Stars Sang Back, Finale. It began, as all beautiful things do, in silence. Not the silence of fear. Not the silence of death. But the kind of silence that comes right before the music starts. And when it did, the stars sang. 3 years after the choir fall, the galaxy had changed. There were no more empires, no more compacts, no more chosen species. There were conversations now, between races, between minds, between memory and meaning. Entire systems had devoted themselves not to conquest or optimization, but to reconnection, to remembering what had once been lost in pursuit of perfection. And at the center of it all, the Memoria still drifted. A living ship, now grown vast, its hull etched with billions of names, those who had suffered, those who had healed, and those who had simply felt. The child of the choir. Ash was different now. Not a soldier, not an echo. Just human, and more. Their bodies still carried pieces of the choir, but now it didn't consume them, it harmonized. They could feel sorrow like gravity, but also joy like sunlight. And every day, they taught others that they didn't have to be whole to be real. Elira Voss, the one who chose. She walked the galaxy not as a hero, but as a reminder. The girl who saved a cat. The soldier who defied a dragon. The human who forgave the dark. She never carried a weapon again. She never ruled. But when she entered a room, even stars paused. Not because she was powerful, but because she cared. And on one quiet evening, in a garden where the skyweavers nested, the stars began to hum. Elira looked up. And for the first time in recorded memory, the constellations realigned intentionally. The universe itself was singing. A resonance, not in sound, but existence. A call and response. An answer to everything humanity had dared to ask. Do we matter? Can we heal? Can something broken ever shine again? The stars answered, yes. The alien cat, now ancient, curled beside Elira's feet. It blinked once, then meowed, once in 3 tones. Elira smiled. I remember. Ash appeared beside her, sky cloak rippling. Was this always the plan? No, Elira said, this was never the plan. And above them, dragons danced between galaxies, no longer watching, but belonging. Final log, Skyweaver Archives. It started with a drowning alien cat. Then a dragon chose to interfere. Then a human broke the pattern. Then sorrow sang back. Now we remember. And we build again, together, The end. Would you like a visual epilogue, character backstories, or a spin-off? The main story has now concluded in Part 10, The Day the Stars Sang Back. However, if you'd like more, here are some directions we can continue. Milky Way post-finale expansions, choose one or more. 1. Visual epilogue. A richly detailed scene, or AI-generated image, showing Elira, Ash, the ancient alien cat, and the star-bonded dragons in their final moment beneath the singing constellations. 2. Character backstories. Explore full origin stories of key characters. Elira Voss, her childhood on a mining colony and how compassion made her dangerous. Ash, their creation in the compact labs, the trauma of becoming part of the choir, and how they reclaimed their humanity. Irok Thal, the dragon's first death, his failed rebellion, and why he chose Elira of all beings. 3. Spin-off stories. The Choir That Stayed, a tale of a hollow choir splinter that refused to surrender darkness, and the Skyweaver team sent to change it. Ash and the Memory Forge, a post-war journey where Ash helps a planet recover from emotional amnesia. Kitten of the Void, a light-hearted side story following the alien cat's misadventures, told from its perspective. 4. Prequel, The Dragon's Mistake. Uncover the first time the dragons broke their vow of non-intervention, centuries before Illyria was born, and why it almost destroyed reality. 5. Lore Book. A world-building chapter explaining the Skyweaver's origin. What the Hollow Choir really was. Why emotion became a galactic weapon. Humanity's role as a Class 0 variable. Which one would you like to read next, or shall I pick one for you? Great, since the main story is finished, let's continue with a spin-off tale from that universe. Spin-off, The Choir That Stayed. A tale of forgiveness, memory, and the last fragment of darkness. Setting, the Ghost System, Sector R99. 3 years after the choir fall. The war was over. The choir had been dissolved, their minds freed, their song rewritten. But not all of them left. There was one system, one cluster of ancient black dwarf stars, where a fragment of the hollow choir had refused to fade. It called itself Amanther. And it had not sung since the day Illyria forgave the dark. It watched. It remembered. And it hated that it remembered. Enter Sarah Nix, apprentice Skyweaver. Sarah was young, reckless, and stubborn. Born after the choir fall, she didn't know war, only its echoes, but she believed healing required more than silence. So when the choir fragment flared back to life in Ghost System, singing an old, broken note, she volunteered. Everyone else had said, "Don't go. That thing is still infected with hate." Sarah simply said, "So was I. Someone came for me." Descent into memory. Her ship, Softblade, entered the blacklight orbit of Amanther. Reality bent oddly here. Songs didn't echo, they looped. Her thoughts began to stagger. A voice whispered through the hull, not in malice, but in despair. "Why didn't I get saved, Colin? Why did you let the rest go, and leave me behind, Colin?" Sarah replied calmly, "You didn't stay, you got stuck." Inside the core. She left her ship and entered Amanther's memory echo, where pieces of broken identity drifted like asteroids of thought. She saw them, fragments of former choir drones. A soldier who'd been forced to kill his family. A mother who forgot her child's name. A being of pure light, now dim and clawing at a false sun. All locked in loops of shame. Amanther itself was massive, formless, a broken mirror reflecting only the worst moments of every being it had ever absorbed. Sarah approached it with one weapon. A single story, her own. She told the mirror how she had once tried to destroy herself. How someone, a Skyweaver named Ash, sat with her instead. Didn't fix her, didn't fight her. Just stayed. The first new note. Amanther trembled. And then, for the first time, it didn't lash out. It asked, "Will you stay, Colin?" Sarah said, "Only if you let yourself change." What followed wasn't a battle, it was a duet. She taught it to remember joy. She let it see its victims, but also their forgiveness. She brought Illyria's story and let Amanther feel what it meant to be chosen, even as a mistake. And then, it began to sing. Not like the choir had. Not like the galaxies. Something simpler, personal. It sang its own name. It remembered who it once was. Amandhar, a child thought from a now-dead star who only ever wanted to belong. Epilogue, The Lighthouse. Amandhar is no longer dangerous. It became the universe's first memory sanctuary, a lighthouse of dark matter and healed pain. Those who are lost come here not to fight, but to feel and be reminded they're not alone. Sarah still visits. Sometimes with Ash. Sometimes with the alien cat. And sometimes, just with silence. And from the Ghost System, a once damned song now echoes outward, no longer in mourning, but in hope. Would you like the next spin-off, Ash and the Memory Forge, or something else entirely?